So lately I've been seeing a trend on social media, and I've mentioned this before, of people posting some of their stories of how relationships ended. I'm not speaking about just romantic relationships, but I'm speaking about familial relationships. I'm speaking about friendships that have ended, right? And sometimes when you really hear where people are coming from, you're just like, but if this was a decade-long relationship, didn't you owe it to yourself to maybe speak about it a little bit more, to maybe look at other ways of managing this conflict that you had? Were we maybe too quick to jump into conclusions, or did we cut this relationship a little bit too soon? Did we not consider the decade-long relationship with this person, that maybe we should have gotten a little bit more help in navigating how to make sure that this relationship keeps on going, but with a little bit more help? And I was just like, let's talk about it. Are we cutting off relationships too soon? Are we just a little bit eager to walk away without putting in all the effort to actually manage some of the conflicts that we're going through in our relationships and to get back to seeing each other eye to eye? Let's talk about it. Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rutendo, and this is Thinking Out Loud with Ru. I am Ru, like I said, and I started this channel just to look at some of the things that we experience as human beings, as young adults, and looking at it from a perspective of someone who is studying psychology and also a Bible-believing Christian. I have mentioned, I don't know in how many videos, how relationships can literally be very beneficial and advantageous to getting us to a place of being able to cope with some of the devastating things that we experience in life, or some of the challenges that we just likely are to bump into whilst we are lifing and whilst we're just trying to survive. And I think sometimes we don't mention enough how relationships are important. And I think we're in such a individualistic, or rather individual focused society. We're just focused about my happiness, my goals, my this, my that sometimes we fail to realize why community is important, why we need people outside of the romantic relationship sense, why we need people who are in our corner when we are sick, when we lose those romantic partners that we've had, or when other people are just pursuing their goals and they might not be able to go on that adventure that we wanted to go on, or we just need people. But sometimes we are so focused on our happiness, or the idea of just maintaining this sense of I always want to put my happiness first before anything else, that at the very first sign of inconvenience, we're like, okay, this is not it. Peace, I'm out of here. And we just run for the hills the first chance that we get, simply because we don't see each other eye to eye. Now, before we actually go any further, I am not saying that every relationship we need to hold on to with both hands. I'm not saying that. But I do think that some of the relationships that people have cut off, maybe we're doing it a little bit too soon. And it's not to say that every single relationship that we have is going to be void of confrontation or conflict or disagreement. So disagreement is going to come because you're two different human beings. If you can disagree with the person that you were raised in the same home with, your sibling or your parent, what makes you think that a person who was raised in a different home as you, who probably has different values as you, what makes us think that we are going to be on the same page with those people? forever on everything. Although, yes, sometimes what brings us together is the similarities that we have in values or in interests. Sometimes, even then, even with that, we're still going to disagree on something. And sometimes we need to have those healthy ways of managing conflict in order for us to get to that point of not walking away from relationships that are still, on the most part, healthy. And like I said before, what I'm not saying is that you should hold on to relationships where your needs are consistently on a basis of not being met, where this person has established that what is important to you, they're not going to maybe go out of their way to make important to them. Or saying that when you wanted them to show up to your graduation or to your birthday or to your child being born, whatever the case is, they always have a reputation, a pattern of not meeting your needs, of not being there for you, whether it is someone who has passed on in your family or in your inner circle, and they consistently do not show up for you. It is a problem when a person has established patterns of not showing up for you, because part of being in a relationship means that sometimes, even though it might be inconvenient for me, I'm still going to make the sacrifice of saying that I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to spend money to be there for you, even though maybe I don't have money at that point in time. Sometimes relationships are going to require on your part to sacrifice something in order to keep it going. So sometimes relationships are going to demand you to sacrifice, whether it is financially, whether it is time, or it is effort. Sometimes relationships are going to demand that. So if a person is consistently in a space where they're not meeting any one of your needs, they're not being there for you, then yes, we can walk away. Or if they have a lack of accountability, to say that if they do something and consistently you're trying to communicate, you've done all the steps of whether it's active listening, whether it is trying to communicate well without blaming, without pointing fingers, but being able to say that, listen, you harmed me or you hurt me by 1, 2, 3. And there is never a point in time where they're able to see life from your perspective. Sometimes, yes, we can walk away from that. Or it's just a lack of compatibility, that we don't share anything in common. And as a result of it, we're always at odds. We don't agree on anything. Because like I said before, friendships, there is an element of us thinking the same way, or us seeing life the same way, or having similar interests if we maybe don't think in a similar way. Because sometimes you can have different religious backgrounds but still be in a place of being able to engage and walk together in life in certain respects. And of course, sometimes we also cut relationships off because they are unhealthy dynamics, that this person is abusive, that the language that they use towards you all the time is to bring you down, to tear you down, rather than to build you up. The more you hear that, you're just like, no, this person, it's not it. But I'm talking about, when we talk about cutting off people too quickly, I'm talking about when we end relationships too soon because we're not addressing issues and we're not addressing the conflicts that we have. I do think that at some point, like I mentioned before, you are going to be in a space where you don't see eye to eye with the people in your lives. And this does not relate to just friendships. This is also the cousins that we have. This is also the distant relationships, relatives that we have, where we don't always agree simply because we may have been brought in different spaces, and because of that, there might be different things that we prioritize over others. And it starts getting to a point where we're busy singing, we don't talk anymore, we don't talk anymore, to the people that we have known for decades, guys. I'm still hurt. Clearly there are people that I'm still hurt over, that we don't talk anymore. But it's because we've gotten to that point where you're just like, how did we get here? How did we get here? Because sometimes we identify that this could have been resolved. It's not like we are so different and so incompatible as human beings that we couldn't have ever gotten on the same page about the issue that separated us. And sometimes it's literally us getting back to a point of learning how to resolve conflicts. And sometimes it means we need to speak up. We need to speak up, because sometimes we walk away from relationships and we haven't even addressed with the people that we've walked away why we might have been upset, why we might have been in a place where we felt like they weren't there for us the way that they should have been there for us, that we expected them to be there for us. Because I do think that sometimes we attribute to other people psychic abilities of saying that you should have read my mind and known that I needed you to be there for me. Because sometimes people might think that what you're experiencing is not a big deal based on maybe the trauma that they went through. That they went through a lot of things at the same time and they were able to survive that. So because of the trauma that they went through, they attribute the same resilience. They expect that you would have the same resilience that they did when they experience what you're currently experiencing. But sometimes we need to be able to communicate, to say that, listen, I know you went through this, but for me, this is what it feels like right now. And this is how I want you to be there for me. Creating that space where we're able to communicate what is in our minds. Because even though, yes, we know that these people know us and they should know better, because sometimes we think that to say that you've known me for decades. How do you not know how I respond to this by now? How do you not know that this hurts me, this bugs me by now? You've literally done it one time too many. How do you not know that this hurts me? So sometimes we attribute some of these qualities to people, but we need to be in a position of being able to communicate what we're feeling and how we need other people to be there for us, so that we're not having expectations that are uncommunicated. Because I cannot tell you how many people ended relationships that maybe they shouldn't have ended simply because they had expectations that they didn't voice out, that they didn't communicate. And as a result of that, the other person just simply did not know that this is what the person needed in order for this relationship to evolve into something greater moving forward. And the next thing that I think people are ending relationships too soon over is sometimes the lack of effort to really nurture relationships. Because like I mentioned before, relationships are going to require you to sacrifice something. Sometimes it is sacrificing money to say that, listen, because we're all working, let's go on a vacation. Let's celebrate life together. Let's enjoy and see this beautiful world that God has literally put so much effort into structuring, into constructing and making it beautiful. He has artistically painted the world, and it is to us to be able to enjoy that artistry. And sometimes people are not always open to that. And you are just like, I want to be able to go in an adventure or be in a space of celebrating some of the wins that we have. And sometimes it is going to cost you money, or sometimes it is going to cost you effort to say that instead of sleeping on your Saturday, well, how about we drive and go hiking together? Or how about you come to mine and we do this together? So sometimes it's always going to require you to give something of yourself. But in the same way that we can sacrifice for romantic relationships, because I think people are so eager to sacrifice for their romantic partners, but they're not always enthusiastic to also do the same thing for their platonic relationships. And sometimes we need that in order to maintain a community. We need to be able to go into it knowing that relationships are going to require you to be able to give something of yourself. And the next thing is that we end relationships too quickly because we're focusing on the negatives. And sometimes this has been me too. I've come close. I've been close. That was close to ending certain relationships simply because I'm just focusing on a moment of conflict. I'm focusing on a moment where the person may have handled something in a way that I don't agree with. And I'm just focusing on that. And everything else is literally outside of my viewpoint at this point in time, and I don't see it. Because I'm not looking at it, it doesn't exist, it never happened. And we're just focusing on that moment of what they did, how that made me feel, and how that is not okay. And because of that, we get to a point of just ending a relationship because we're just focusing on the negative thing that you're looking at. And sometimes the way that I interrupt that is by asking myself, okay, let's grab our phone. Let's go into the archives. Let's see some of the positive things that this person may have done in the past, because sometimes we have recorded it, whether it's on video or it is on pictures. Sometimes we need to physically see how people have been there for us, or if it is looking at your gifts that you've gotten in the past, how was this person there for you? How did they show up for you previously? So that you're not only focusing on the negative of this is what they did to me, and because they did this, how dare they? The audacity of this human being to be able to do this to me, and then just walking away because of that. Sometimes we do need to force ourselves to look at the positives, because people are not only made of their worst moments. Sometimes, because life is lifing, people might show up in conversations is not their best selves because they're just moody, because they're hungry, because some of us get hungry and we say things when we're hungry. But because of the season that they're experiencing, they're not as sensitive as they usually are. They're not as soft as they usually are, or as gentle as we usually experience them. So the same way that we give ourselves grace to say that because I was going through something, this is the reason why I said what I said, and I didn't mean it. We might also need to extend the same grace and the same compassion to other people, because they too might be going through things that are stressing them out, that is creating an environment that is contributing to them showing up the way that they showed up, in a way that harmed you. And sometimes it's not the intention, but if we can judge ourselves by our intentions and other people by their actions, can't we take a little bit of a moment to also look at the intentions of the people in our lives? Before this moment, how were their intentions? How were they showing up in our lives when things were okay? Because it's also important that we extend the same grace to people, that we also expect other people to show us when we're not always great people to be around. Just a thought. Just a thought. And the last thing that I wrote here, why people end relationships too soon, it's because we don't always give relationships time. And I do think that for us to get to a point of just being on the same page with people, sometimes we need time. We need time to be able to learn our similarities, or time to learn how does this person react when they're angry. Time to learn how does this person react when they don't get the things that they want. We need to learn people in the different seasons so that we can see, is this a person that I'm truly compatible with, or are we strictly uncompatible and we can just walk away from this relationship? Sometimes we just need time to learn each other and to learn our likes and dislikes, and to get on the same page before we walk away. But I just wanted to do this video because I do think that sometimes we need time and we need communication. We need certain tools to be able to get to a point of maintaining relationships, but it doesn't mean that we need to walk away. And it's something that we always need to evaluate before you cut a person off. Have I genuinely tried to reach out to this person? Have I communicated the expectations that I have? Has this person been different? Questioning the moment of the negative things that you're seeing. Have I seen anything positive past this point? Do I think that we can work it out? Do I think that this person has had good things about them that are worthy of us exploring before this point, before we walk away? Because we do need relationships, and not just romantic relationships. We need friendships, we need our families, but we need to invest as much effort as we would into maintaining our own health, into maintaining our relationships, in order for us to get to that point of not walking away from relationships that are really genuinely good for us. Because some of the things that we might need to work on about ourselves, about our character, about our values, whatever it is, sometimes we do get those cues from the context of relationships. So if we are so quick to walk away from relationships to a point that we're just focusing on our joy, our happiness, are we missing out on some of the fruits that come from relationships simply because we're focusing on us? And it is something to leave you with in terms of food for thought. But thank you so much for watching this video and for staying till the end. And I hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much and stay blessed. Thank you. Have a good one.